Module 6 Financial Planning. In this module, the main points of financial planning are mentioned, and it's aimed to show the way to entrepreneurs in the subjects covered by financial planning. For this purpose, financial information, commercial documents, text types, financial resources will be given information about what resources and how much an enterprise creates, who created resources, why and how much use, and the source of the financial position of the current and future financial position. It helps to cope with cash shortage problem that most of the newly established initiatives face. It is often shared with potential investors to indicate how to meet financial liabilities. It shows how to pay the debt and how to make a good investment profitability rate. It is generally seen that it is prepared in the form of pro forma financial statements for 3, 5, or 7 years. Mostly, data for the first year are prepared monthly. What is a financial plan and its parts? Due to the fact that operating activities are prudential, the effects of future events on the enterprise are tried to be estimated from today. This is mandatory for efficient use of resources. It expresses that all kinds of fund inflows and outflows which will come out during operating activities connect to a program in advance, and it's one of the most important duties of financial manager. It is possible to classify financial plans according to the purpose of construction and the time it covers. Financial plans by goals, ordinary financial plans, extraordinary financial plans by time, short-term financial plans, medium and long-term financial plans. 6.2 What are commercial documents? A commercial document indicates that a good is purchased or sold. The following figure shows the commercial documents and documents outside of them. Invoice and documents as invoice. Dispatch notes. Invoice. Consignment invoice. Documents as invoice. Expense voucher. Self-employed invoice. Producer receipt. Other commercial documents. Documents that must hang, negotiable instruments, receipts, accounting receipts, payrolls. 6.3 Types of tax and VAT. The tax types used in commercial life consist of income tax, corporate tax, value-added tax, and private consumption tax. Income tax law, incomes of the real persons are subject to income tax, and income is the net amount of earnings and revenues that a real person obtains in a calendar year. Corporate tax. A company with share capital, cooperatives, state-owned economic enterprises, commercial enterprises belonging to associations or foundations, and the earnings of business partnerships are subject to corporate tax. Value-added tax. Delivery and services made within the framework of commercial, industrial, agricultural, and self-employment activities, importation of all kinds of goods and services, and delivery and services. VAT is the most common tax that is taken on expenditures. Value added, which is created from the first source of goods or services to reaching final consumer, is in the subject text. Private consumption tax. Attached to the private consumption tax law, delivery of goods by manufacturers, including importers or refineries, the first acquisition of goods that is subject to the registration and enrollment, the importation of the delivery of the registration and enrollment before the implementation of private consumption tax are subject to private consumption tax only for once. 6.12 Cash management and cash flow. Cash management involves in estimating, collecting, making payments, financing of investments of cash level decisions in the way of regularity and continuity of the operations of the company. The purpose of cash management is to determine the optimal cash level that should be kept by comparing the cost and the usefulness of the cash held. The financial manager must plan when to have excessive funds for investments and when to apply for borrowing. In addition to this, the factors that determine the money in the safe must be handled with care. The fact that businesses have cash in their hands provides advantages to the business while at the same time creating disadvantages for the enterprise. Cash flow cycle is a time period between the time payment to be made to suppliers for raw materials or equipment, and the time of collection from customers. The longer the cash flow cycle, the higher the risk of a cash crisis. 6.15 Source of finance and alternative financial resources. The sources for funding which offer to enterprise in order to meeting the cash needs which are required for company establishment and operation is important for the development of the enterprise. Enterprises may go to borrowing if their funding sources are not sufficient. Financial resources. You will see more of this in Chapter 10, but let's do a quick review. Declared capital, the economic value of reputation is the declared capital. Declared capital is like a bank account which acts as a shield in the difficult times of the enterprise. Angel investors. It is that people with high income who are known as in the United States angel investors, in Europe business angels, and in Turkey retail investor participation and who have invested the early stage of innovative firms. Angel investment market in the world developed in the 19th in the United States and then has spread to Europe and Turkey laterly. Individuals who invest in capital to entrepreneurs are called angel investors. The angel investors in the establishment of an enterprise aims to both meet the cash needs of the enterprise and reduce the financial risk. Credit cards and bank loans. It is possible to make a wide variety of definitions regarding credit. The credit, which means believing, and trust in Latin, comes from the word creed. This word corresponds to meanings such as dignity and reputation. Credit in general, defined to with promise of payment after a certain time, providing purchasing power in terms of goods, services, and currencies or transferring existing purchasing power to another person to be withdrawn after a certain time. Venture capital. It's a fund created by professionals. It invests in projects which are a young, dynamic, rapid growth, and high profitability potential. It's a good resource for starting capital of companies. It's a financial instrument in the financial sector which is intended to be used for specific purposes and created for these purposes. It is one of the investment funds. Factoring. It is the participation of the factoring company, factoring, in a return or non-return with the transfer of the term receivables arising from the sale of goods or services, and whether or not the financing related to these receivables by factors is made. Collection, tracking, retention of credit records, or carrying out at least one of the functions in protection against doubtful receivables. The most striking factor in all factoring definitions is the maturity. There are three sides in these transactions. These are the buyer business, vendor business, and factoring company. Leasing, according to the Leasing Europe's definitions of leasing, is a contract signed between the leaser and the leasee for a certain period of time that leaves the ownership of a property purchased by the leasee from the manufacturer, leaving its use in return for the payment for a specific lease in the tenant and the leaving the lease to the leasee. Initial public offering. IPO is that in order to obtain new resources, a joint stock company or a partnership provide capital by calling or announcement to the stock market investors to sell stocks. It can also be explained that the company's shares are operated in the stock market or organized markets continuously.